There is a white pie plate sitting under the orchid on my kitchen windowsill right now. There is nothing in it but a handful of pebbles from the driveway and about a half-inch of plain tap water. No fertilizer in that water. No special product from any garden center. And the little grocery store moth orchid sitting on top of it has been in bloom, or holding buds, for 10 months out of the last 12. 10 months. The one before it did nearly as well year after year, on the same windowsill over my kitchen sink. Now, most folks buy one of these orchids at the supermarket right there by the bananas, and they enjoy those flowers for a month or two. Then the blooms drop one by one, and that plant sits there as a pot of green leaves for years. If that is your orchid, honey, it is not your fault. And it is not the plant's fault either. Nobody at that store ever shows us what this flower actually is. And once you see it, everything about it makes plain good sense. So stay with me to the end, because where you set this plate come the middle of September matters even more than what is in it. There is one particular thing the cool night air does to this plant, and it is the real reason some orchids bloom every single year and some never bloom again. I'm Debra Wilson. I have been growing flowers for more than 50 years, ever since I was a little girl at my Grandma Hazel's elbow, and these days my yard here in Tennessee is the most colorful one on the block. Hydrangeas, roses, peonies, dahlias, and a windowsill of orchids in the kitchen. And I will tell you honest, I once went 2 whole summers without a single hydrangea bloom before Grandma's old words set me straight. So I know exactly what a stubborn plant feels like. Now let's talk about that orchid of yours. You know the one. Somebody gave it to you for a birthday, or you picked it up at the grocery store. And for 6 or 8 weeks, it was the prettiest thing in the house. Then the flowers dropped, and you have been looking at 3 green leaves in a clear plastic pot ever since. So you did what any of us would do. You watered it more, because surely it was thirsty. Maybe you gave it a dose of houseplant fertilizer, because surely it was hungry. And nothing happened. Or worse, a leaf went soft and yellow on you, honey. Too much water is the number one thing that kills these plants, and heavy feeding just builds leaves. My Grandma Hazel had a saying I have shared with you before. Honey, you're feeding the leaves and starving the flowers, she said. That about my hydrangeas all those years ago, and it is just as true about the orchid sitting over your kitchen sink. This plant is not like any other flower in your house. Once you understand what it truly is, every single thing I show you today will feel like common sense. The pie plate handles the first half of the problem, the air. It costs about nothing and takes 10 minutes to set up. And remember what I told you about September. That is the second half, and we are coming to it because it is the piece nobody at the store ever mentions. Now, before we build that tray together, let me tell you where all of this thinking comes from. Everything I do for my flowers, this orchid included, starts with the same gentle system I wrote down in a little book called Debra's 30-Day Bloom Protocol. It is my day-by-day method for turning big, leafy, stubborn plants into bloomers in 30 days. Built on the old pantry and shed ways my Grandma Hazel used, and written out plain for hydrangeas, roses, peonies, dahlias, and perennials. The first week is called Diagnose Before You Feed, and it walks you through why plants give all leaves and no flowers. The simple soil test Grandma swore by, the sun audit that changes everything, and learning whether your plant blooms on old wood or new wood, all before you spend one more dime on fertilizer. The whole thing is 122 pages, and right now it is $17, marked down from $47. $17 against another whole summer of big green bushes and empty stems. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, honey. Let's meet this plant properly because this is where everything starts making sense. The orchid on your windowsill is called a moth orchid, and out in the wild, it does not grow in dirt at all. It grows up on the branches of trees in warm forests where the rain comes through nearly every day. Its roots wrap around the bark of that tree branch, right out in the open air. The rain washes over those roots, drains away in a minute, and the soft, damp air does the rest. That is why your orchid came home in a clear plastic pot full of bark chips instead of potting soil. Those bark chips are pretending to be a tree branch. The clear pot lets light reach the roots because on a tree branch, those roots live in the light. So this is a plant whose roots need two things: a quick drink and then plenty of air. Now think about the air inside our houses. In summer, the air conditioning dries it out. In winter, the furnace dries it out even worse, until the air in the living room is drier than a lot of deserts. Your orchid is sitting there in that dry air, holding on as best it can, and a plant that is just holding on does not spend one bit of energy on flowers. It makes leaves and it waits. That is where the pie plate comes in, that little tray of pebbles. And water puts a soft cushion of damp air right around the plant, all day and all night, the closest thing to that forest branch your kitchen can offer. So let me show you what I do. Come on over to the kitchen counter with me and we will build one together. You need three things: a shallow dish that is wider than the orchid's pot, and a pie plate, a baking dish, or even a plant saucer works fine. A few handfuls of pebbles and driveway gravel, aquarium gravel, or glass marbles all do the job. And plain tap water. First, wash those pebbles in the sink with warm water. Give them a good rinse. Next, spread the pebbles across the dish about 1 inch deep. 1 inch is plenty. Now pour in water until it comes about halfway up the pebbles. And here is the one rule that matters more than all the rest. The water must stay below the tops of the pebbles, below the tops. Honey, always. Now set the orchid pot right on top of the stones. The pot should be sitting on dry stone. It should never ever be sitting in water. And let me tell you why. Because the why is what keeps you out of trouble. Those roots are air roots. If they stand in water, they will rot, and they can rot in a week or two. But water sitting down among the pebbles below the pot does something lovely. It evaporates slowly all day long, and that moisture rises up and wraps around the leaves like a soft blanket. My grandma Hazel kept a chipped enamel pie plate of creek gravel under her African violets on the back porch for the very same reason. She never called it anything fancy. She just said the plant's like a little damp air, and she was right. Take your time setting yours up. There is no rush at all. That handles the building. But a tray needs a little keeping, and it is easy. Twice a week, check the water and top it off because it evaporates. And that evaporating is exactly the point. Once a month, dump the whole dish. Rinse the pebbles in warm water and fill it fresh. That keeps everything clean and sweet smelling. So 1 inch of pebbles, water halfway up, pot on dry stone, topped off twice a week, rinsed once a month. That is the whole tray. Now, here is where most folks go wrong, and that is the watering can. With the tray handling the air, the roots need far less water than you think. I water my kitchen orchid about once a week in summer and closer to every 10 days, or 2 weeks in winter. But do not go by the calendar, go by the plant. Pick the pot up. If it feels light as a feather, it is thirsty. And look at the roots through that clear pot. Thirsty roots turn a silvery gray color. Watered roots are bright green. Silver means water me. Green means leave me be. When it is time, water in the morning, so the plant dries out during the warm part of the day. Carry the whole pot to the kitchen sink. Run room temperature water gently through the bark for 15 or 20 seconds. Let it drain completely, every last drop, then set it back on its tray of pebbles. One more thing, and this one matters. Never let water sit down in the crown, which is the little heart where the leaves meet in the middle. If water pools there, tip the plant sideways to spill it, and dab the rest with the corner of a paper towel. A wet crown can rot, and a drained crown never will. That is it. A quick drink, a full drain, and back on its branch. Anyone can do this. I promise you that. So that is the roots taken care of. Now let's talk about light, because light is where the flower energy actually comes from. A moth orchid wants a bright window without hot, direct afternoon sun. In the forest, it lives under the tree leaves, in bright shade. An east-facing window is just about perfect, with that gentle morning sun. A south window works too, if you hang a sheer curtain between the glass and the plant. And your orchid will tell you whether it is happy, right there in its leaves. Look at the color. A well-lit orchid has leaves in a light, grassy olive green. An orchid kept too dark grows leaves in a deep, rich, dark green. Now those dark leaves are beautiful, but does that story sound familiar? Gorgeous leaves and not one flower. Feeding the leaves and starving the flowers, just in a different way. If your leaves are dark green, move the plant somewhere brighter and give it a few weeks. And hold on to that thought about the window, honey, because the cool night air beside that glass is the September secret I promised you, and we are getting close now. Before the spike comes, there is one more small habit, and that is feeding. This plant is a light eater. On a tree branch, it lives on whatever the rain washes down the bark, which is not much. So here is my rule. Use a regular, balanced houseplant food, but mix it at 1/4 of the strength on the label. 1/4, honey, a pinch, and not a plateful. I add that weak mix to most of my waterings through spring and summer. I skip it when the plant is in full bloom, and I skip most of the dark winter months, and never feed a dry plant. If the roots are silver, give plain water first, then feed the next time around. Strong fertilizer on a moth orchid burns the roots and builds nothing but leaves. A weak, gentle feeding builds flowers. It goes against everything the bag tells you, and it works every single time. Now comes my favorite morning of the whole year, the morning you spot the spike. A flower spike starts as a little green point poking out from between the leaves, low down near the base. Folks mix it up with a new root, so look close at the tip. A root has a smooth, rounded tip. A spike is flatter, with a shape like a tiny green mitten. When you see that mitten, you have flowers coming, and you have one job. Leave the plant alone. Once buds start forming along that spike, do not move the pot to a new room, and do not even turn it much on the windowsill. A budded orchid that gets moved will sometimes drop every single bud, and old growers call that bud blast. Same window, same tray, same routine, and in a few weeks, those buds open one after another, and a moth orchid holds its open flowers for 2 and even 3 months. There is no other houseplant in America that blooms that long from one spike. Then one day, months later, the last flower drops. Most folks think the show is over. Not always, honey. Look close at that bare flower stem, and you will see little bumps spaced along it, like tiny knuckles. Those are called nodes, and some of them are sleeping flower buds. Take clean scissors. Count up 2 bumps from the base of the stem. Cut the stem about a 1/2 inch above that second bump. About half the time, the plant sends a brand new branch right out of that bump with a whole new round of flowers on it. If the stem turns brown and papery instead, Just cut it off at the base and let the plant rest and gather itself. Either way, you have lost nothing, and you have very often bought yourself months of extra bloom with one snip. And that brings us to the part I promised you at the start. Everything I have shown you today keeps a moth orchid healthy and holds its blooms for months. But the thing that starts a brand new spike, the trigger itself, is not food, and it is not water. Up on those tree branches where this plant grows wild, there is one signal that tells every orchid on the mountainside it is time to flower. At the end of the warm season, the nights turn cool. The days stay warm, but the nights drop about 10 degrees cooler, down around 60 degrees, and they stay that way for 2 to 3 weeks. 10 degrees cooler at night for 2 to 3 weeks. That cool spell is the plant's calendar. It says the season is turning, make your flowers now. And here is why your orchid at home never got the message. Our houses sit at 70 degrees day and night, winter and summer. The plant is comfortable. It is healthy, and it is waiting for a signal that never ever comes. So it does the only thing left to do. It grows leaves happily for years. Your orchid was never stubborn, honey. It just never heard the bell. So here's what I do every single year. In the middle of September, I move my orchid tray and all right up close to the glass of my coolest bright window. The air beside that glass drops into the low 60s at night all on its own. Some years, if September runs warm here in Tennessee, I crack that window an inch at bedtime and close it with my morning coffee. I keep that up for 2 to 3 weeks. Then everything goes back to normal. And 4 to 6 weeks later, like clockwork, that little green mitten appears. This is also exactly when the tray earns its keep twice over. Because right as those cool nights arrive, the furnace kicks on and dries the whole house out. And that dish of pebbles and water carries the plant right through it. So now you can see the whole picture. The tray keeps the plant in bloom. The cool September nights start the bloom. Put the two together, and one grocery store orchid will hand you flowers nearly all year round. And that little correction right there is exactly how my whole book works. One honest look at what the plant truly needs. One small, gentle change, and the flowers follow. Debra's 30-day bloom protocol walks your hydrangeas, roses, peonies, dahlias, and perennials through that same kind of thinking day by day for 30 days, ending with the Per Plant Bloom playbook. One simple page for each flower. It is $17, marked down from $47. $17. Or one more summer of big green bushes and bare stems and honey. I know which one I would pick. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So there it is, 1 inch of pebbles with water below the tops, a bright, gentle window, a light drink, and a 1/4 strength pinch, and 2 to 3 weeks of cool September nights by the glass. Tell me in the comments what's refusing to bloom for you this year, and what state you're gardening in. I read every single one, and next time I'm going to show you the $2 pantry powder I scatter around my peonies in October, because the number of blooms you get next May is decided in the fall. And the reason it has to go down before the ground gets cold is something my Grandma Hazel taught me at the edge of her peony bed. Now go on out there and get your hands in the dirt, honey. I'll see you in the garden.